varieties of lilies. The lakes were full of nice swans and cranes, and the voices of these birds resounded everywhere. In the city there were as many as 900,000 great palaces built of first-class marble, with gates and doors made of silver. The pillars of the houses and palaces were bedecked with jewels, such as touchstone, sapphire, and emerald, and the floors gave off a beautiful luster. The highways, lanes, streets, crossings, and marketplaces were all beautifully decorated. The whole city was full of residential homes, assembly houses, and temples, all of different architectural beauty. All of this made Dwarka a glowing city. The big avenues, crossings, lanes, and streets, and also the thresholds of every residential house were very clean. On both sides of every path there were bushes, and at regular intervals there were large trees that shaded the avenue so that the sunshine would not bother the passerby.
In this greatly beautiful city of Dwarika, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had many residential quarters. The great kings and princes of the world used to visit these palaces just to worship him. The architectural plans were made personally by Vishwakarma, the engineer of the demigods, and in the construction of the palaces he exhibited all the talents and ingenuity. These residential quarters numbered more than 16,000, and a different queen of Lord Krishna resided in each of them. The great sage Narada entered one of these houses and saw that the pillars were made of coral and the ceilings were bedecked with jewels. The walls as well as the arches between the pillars glowed from the decoration of different kinds of the sapphires. Throughout the palace were many canopies made of Vishwakarma that were decorated with strings of pearls. The chairs and other furnitures were made of ivory and bedecked with gold and diamonds, and jeweled lamps dissipated the darkness within the palace. There were so much incenses and fragrant gum burning that the scented fumes were coming out of the windows. The peacocks sitting on the steps became illusioned by the fumes, mistaking them for clouds, and began dancing jubilantly. There were many maidservants, all of whom were decorated with gold necklaces, bangles, and beautiful saris. There were also many men servants nicely dressed in cloaks and turbans and jeweled earrings. Beautiful as they were, the servants were all engaged in different household duties.
Narada saw that Lord Krishna was sitting with Rukmini Devi, the mistress of the particular palace, who was holding the handle of a chamra whisk. Even though there were many thousands of maidservants equally beautiful and qualified and of the same age, Rukmini Devi personally was engaged in fanning Lord Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, worshipped even by Narada. Yet, as soon as Krishna saw Narada enter the palace, he got down immediately from Rukmini's bedsheet and bedstead and stood up to honor him. Lord Krishna is the teacher of the whole world, and in order to instruct everyone how to respect a saintly person like Narada Muni, he bowed down, touching his helmet to the ground. Not only did Krishna bow down, but he also touched the feet of Narada and with folded hands requested him to sit on his chair. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Personality worshipped by all devotees. He is the most worshipable spiritual master of everyone. The Ganges water, which emanates from his feet, sanctifies the three worlds. All qualified Brahmanas worship him, and therefore he is called Brahmanya Deva.
Brahmanya means one. Yeah. Brahm, Brahmanya means one who fully possesses the Brahminical qualifications, which are said to be as follows: truthfulness, self-control, purity, mastery of the senses, simplicity, full knowledge by practical application, and engagement in devotional service. Lord Krishna possesses all these qualities, and he is worshipped by persons who themselves possesses such quality. These are thousands and millions of names of Lord Krishna, Vishnu Sahasranama, and all of them are given to him because of his transcendental qualities.
Lord Krishna in Dwarka enjoyed the pastimes of a perfect human being. Therefore, when he washed the feet of the sage Narada and took the water on his head, Narada did not object, knowing well that the Lord did so to teach everyone how to respect saintly persons. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the original Narayana, an eternal friend of all living entities, thus worshipped the sage Narada according to Vedic regulative principles. Welcoming him with sweet nectarian words, he addressed Narada as Bhagwan, or one who is self-sufficient, possessing all knowledge, renunciation, strength, fame, beauty, and other similar opulences. He particularly asked Narada, "What can I do in your service?"
Narada replied, "My dear Lord, this kind of behavior by your lordship is not at all astonishing, for you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Master of all species of living entities. You are the supreme friend of all living entities, but at the same time, you are the supreme chastiser of the miscreants and the envious. I know that your lordship has descended to this earth for the proper maintenance of the whole universe. Your appearance, therefore, is not forced by any other agency. By your sweet will only, you agree to appear and disappear. It is my great fortune that I have been able to see your lotus feet today. Anyone who becomes attached to your lotus feet is elevated to the supreme position of neutrality and is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. My Lord, you are unlimited. There is no limit to your opulences. Great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are always busy placing you within their hearts and meditating upon you. The conditioned souls who have now been put into the blind well of material existence can get out of this eternal captivity only by accepting your lotus feet. Thus, you are the only shelter of all conditioned souls. My dear Lord, you have very kindly asked what you can do for me. In answer to this, I simply request that I may not forget your lotus feet at any time. I do not care whether I may be, but I pray that I constantly be allowed to remember your lotus feet.
By asking this benediction from the Lord, the sage Narada showed the ideal prayer of all pure devotees. A pure devotee never asks for any kind of material or spiritual benediction from the Lord. His only prayer is that he may not forget the lotus feet of the Lord in any condition of life. A pure devotee does not care whether he is put into heaven or hell. He is satisfied anywhere, provided he can constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya taught this same process of prayer in his Shastastika, in which he clearly stated that all he wanted was devotional service, birth after birth. A pure devotee does not even want to stop the repetition of birth and death. To a pure devotee, it does not matter whether he has to take birth again in the various species of life. His only ambition is that he not forget the lotus feet of the Lord in any condition of life.
After departing from the palace of Rukmini, Naradaji wanted to see further activities of Lord Krishna's internal potency, Yogamaya. Thus he entered the palace of another queen. There he saw Lord Krishna engaged in playing chess with his dear wife and Uddhava. The Lord immediately got up from his personal seat and invited Narada Muni to sit there. The Lord again worshipped him with as much paraphernalia for reception as he had used in the palace of Rukmini. After worshipping him properly, Lord Krishna acted as if he did not know what had happened in the palace of Rukmini. He therefore told Narada, "My dear sage, when your holiness comes here, you are full in yourself. Although we are householders and are always in need, you don't require anyone's help, for you are self-satisfied. Under the circumstances, what reception can we offer you, and what can we possibly give you? Yet, since your holiness is a Brahmana, it is our duty to offer you something as far as possible. Therefore, I beg you to please order me. What can I do for you?"
Naradji knew everything about the pastimes of the Lord. So without further discussion, he simply left the palace silently, in great astonishment over the Lord's activities. He then entered another palace. This time, Naradji saw that Lord Krishna was engaged as an affectionate father, petting his small children. From there, he entered another palace and saw Lord Krishna preparing to take his path. In this way, Saint Narada entered each and every one of the 16,000 residential palaces of the Queen of Lord Krishna, and in each of them he found Krishna engaged in different ways.
In one palace, he found Krishna offering oblations to the sacrificial fire and performing the ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedas as enjoined for householders. In another palace, he found Krishna performing the Panja Yajna sacrifice, which is compulsory for a householder. This yajna is also known as Panja Suna. Knowingly or unknowingly, everyone, especially the householder, commits 5 kinds of sinful activities. When we receive water from a water pitcher, we kill many germs that are in it. Similarly, when we use a grinding machine or eat food, we kill many germs. When sweeping a floor or igniting a fire, we kill many germs. And when we walk on the street, we kill many ants and other insects. Consciously or unconsciously, in all our different activities, we are killing. Therefore, it is incumbent upon every householder to perform the Panja Suna sacrifice to rid himself of the reactions to such sinful activities.
In one palace, Narada found Lord Krishna feeding Brahmanas after performing ritualistic yajnas. In another palace, Narada found Krishna silently chanting the Gayatri mantra. And in a third, he found him practicing fighting with a sword and shield. In some palaces, Lord Krishna was found riding on horses, elephants, or chariots and wandering hither and thither. Elsewhere, he was found lying down on his bedstead, taking rest. And somewhere else he was found sitting in his chair, being praised by the prayers of his different devotees. In some of the palaces, he was found consulting with ministers like Uddhava on important matters of business. In one palace, he was found surrounded by many young society girls, enjoying in a swimming pool. In another palace, he was found giving well decorated cows in charity to the Brahmanas. And in another palace, he was found hearing the narrations of the Puranas and of histories such as the Mahabharata, which are supplementary scriptures for disseminating Vedic knowledge to common people by narrating important instances in the history of the universe. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found enjoying the company of a particular wife by exchanging joking words with her. Somewhere else, he was found engaged with his wife in religious ritualistic functions. Since it is necessary for householders to increase their financial assets for various expenditures, Krishna was found somewhere engaged in matter of economic development. Somewhere else, he was found enjoying family life according to the regulative principle of the Shastras.
In one palace, he was found sitting in meditation as if concentrating his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond these material universes. Meditation, as recommended in authorized scripture, is meant for concentrating one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Lord Krishna is himself the original Vishnu, but because he played the part of a human being, he taught us definitely by his personal behavior what is meant by meditation. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found satisfying elderly superiors by supplying them things they needed. Somewhere else, Naraji found that Lord Krishna was engaged in discussing topics of fighting, and somewhere else in making peace with enemies. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found discussing the ultimate auspicious activity for the entire human society with his elder brother, Lord Balaram. Narada saw Lord Krishna engaged in getting his sons and daughters married with suitable brides and bridegrooms in due course of time, and the marriage ceremonies were being performed with great pomp. In one palace, the Lord was found bidding farewell to his daughter, and in another, he was found receiving a daughter in law. People throughout the whole city were astonished to see such pomp in ceremonies.
Somewhere the Lord was seen performing different types of sacrifices to satisfy the demigods, who are only his qualitative expansions. Somewhere he was seen engaged in public welfare activities, establishing deep wells for the water supply, rest houses and gardens for unknown guests, and great monasteries and temples for saintly persons. These are some of the duties enjoined in the Vedas for householders for fulfillment of their material desires. Somewhere Krishna was found as a Kshatriya king engaged in hunting animals in the forest and riding on a very beautiful Sindhi horse. According to Vedic regulations, the Kshatriyas were allowed to kill prescribed animals on certain occasions, either to maintain peace in the forest or to offer the animals in the sacrificial fire. Kshatriyas are allowed to practice this killing art because they have to kill their enemies mercilessly to maintain peace in society. In one situation, the great sage Narada saw Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and master of mystic powers, acting as a spy by changing his usual dress in order to understand the motives of different citizens in the city and the palaces.
Saint Narada saw all these activities of the Lord, who is the super soul of all living entities,
but who played the role of an ordinary human being to manifest the activities of his internal potency. Smiling within himself, Narada addressed the Lord as follows: My dear Lord of all mystic powers, object of the meditation of great mystics, the extent of your mystic power is certainly inconceivable, even to mystics like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. But by your mercy, because of my being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of your lotus feet, your Lordship has very kindly revealed to me the actions of your internal potency. My dear Lord, you are worshipable by all, and demigods and predominating deities of all 14 planetary systems are completely aware of your transcendental fame. Now, please, give me your blessings so that I may be able to travel all over the universes, singing the glories of your transcendental activities.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, replied to Narada as follows: My dear Narada, O sage among the demigods, you know that I am the supreme instructor and perfect follower of all religious principles, as well as the supreme enforcer of such principles. I am therefore personally executing such religious principles in order to teach the whole world how to act. My dear son, it is my desire that you not be bewildered by such demonstrations of my internal energy. The Supreme Personality of Godhead was engaged in his so-called household affairs in order to teach people how one can sanctify one's household life, although one may be attached to the imprisonment of material existence. Actually, one is obliged to continue the term of material existence because of household life. But the Lord, being very kind upon householders, demonstrated the path of sanctifying ordinary household life. Because Krishna is the center of all activities, the life of a Krishna-conscious householder is transcendental to Vedic injunctions and is automatically sanctified.
Thus, Narada saw one single Krishna living in 16,000 palaces by his plenary expansions. Due to his inconceivable energy, he was visible in the palace of each and every individual queen. Lord Krishna has unlimited power, and Narada's astonishment was boundless upon observing again and again the demonstration of Lord Krishna's internal energy. Lord Krishna behaved by his personal example as if he were very much attached to the 4 principles of civilized life, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These 4 principles of material existence are necessary for the spiritual advancement of human society, and although Lord Krishna had no need to do so, he exhibited his household activities so that people might follow in his footsteps for their own interest. Lord Krishna satisfied the sage Narada in every way. Narada was very much pleased by seeing the Lord's activities in Dwarka, and thus he departed.
In narrating the activities of Lord Krishna in Dwarka, Sukadeva Goswami explained to King Parikshit how Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descends to this material universe by the agency of his internal potency and personally exhibits the principles which, if followed, can lead one to achieve the ultimate goal of life. All the queens in the Dwarka, more than 16,000 in number, engaged their feminine attractive features in the transcendental service of the Lord by smiling and serving, and the Lord was pleased to behave with them exactly like a perfect husband enjoying household life. One should know definitely that such pastimes cannot be performed by anyone but Lord Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna, who is original cause of the creation, maintenance, and dissolutions of the whole cosmic manifestation. Anyone who attentively hears the narration of the Lord's pastimes in Dwaraka or supports a preacher of the Krishna conscious movement will certainly find it very easy to traverse the path of liberation and taste the nectar of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And thus he will be engaged in Lord Krishna's devotional service. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 69th chapter of Krishna. The great sage Narada visits the different homes of Lord Krishna. Hari Bol.
Chapter 70 Lord Krishna's Daily Activities. From the Vedic mantras, we learn that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do. Na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyade. But if the Supreme Lord has nothing to do, how can we speak of the activities of the Supreme Lord? From the previous chapter, it is clear that no one can act the way Lord Krishna does. We should clearly note this fact. The activities of the Lord should be followed, but they cannot be imitated. For example, Krishna's ideal life as a householder can be followed, but if one wants to imitate Krishna by expanding into many forms, that is not possible. We should also know that Lord Krishna, although playing the part of a human being, simultaneously maintains the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We can follow Lord Krishna's dealings with his wives as an ordinary human being, but his dealings with more than 16,000 wives at one time cannot be imitated. The conclusion is that to become ideal householders, we should follow in the footsteps of Lord Krishna, as he displayed his daily activities, but we cannot imitate him at any stage of our life.
Lord Krishna used to lie down with his 16,000 wives, but he would also rise from bed very early in the morning, 3 hours before sunrise. By nature's arrangement, the crowing of the cocks warns of the Brahma Muhurta hour. There is no need of alarm clocks. As soon as the cocks crow early in the morning, it is to be understood that it is time to rise from bed. Hearing that sound, Krishna would get up from bed, but his rising early was not very much to the liking of his wives. The wives of Krishna were so much attached to him that they would lie in bed, embracing him, and as soon as the cocks crowed, Krishna's wives would be very sorry and would immediately condemn the crowing.
In the garden within the compound of each palace, there were parijata flowers. The parijata is not an artificial flower. We remember that Krishna bought the parijata trees from heaven and implanted them in all his palaces. Early in the morning, a mild breeze would carry the aroma of the parijat flower, and Krishna would smell it just after rising from bed. Due to this aroma, the honeybees would begin their humming vibration, and the birds also begin their sweet chirping sounds. Altogether, it would sound like the singing of professional chanters engaged in offering prayers to Krishna. Although Srimati Rukmini Devi, the first queen of Lord Krishna, knew that Brahma Muhurta is the most auspicious time in the entire day, she would feel disgusted at the appearance of Brahma Muhurta, because she was not very happy to have Krishna leave her side in bed. Despite Srimati Rukmini Devi's disgust, Lord Krishna would immediately get up from bed exactly on the appearance of Brahma Muhurta. An ideal householder should learn from the behavior of Lord Krishna how to rise early in the morning, however comfortably he may be lying in bed, embraced by his wife.
After rising from bed, Lord Krishna would wash his mouth, hands, and feet and would immediately sit down and meditate on himself. This does not mean, however, that we should also sit down and meditate on ourselves. We have to meditate upon Krishna, Radha Krishna. That is the real meditation. Krishna is Krishna himself. Therefore, he was teaching us that Brahma Muhurta should be utilized for meditation on Radha Krishna. By such meditation, Krishna would feel very much satisfied, and similarly, he will also feel transcendently pleased and satisfied if we utilize the Brahma Muhurta period to meditate on Radha and Krishna, and if we think of how Sri Rukmini Devi and Krishna acted as ideal householders to teach the whole human society to rise early in the morning and immediately engage in Krishna consciousness. There is no difference between meditating on the eternal forms of Radha Krishna and chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna. As for Krishna's meditation, he had no alternative but to meditate on himself. The object of meditation is Brahman, Paramatma, or Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna himself is all three. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. The localized Paramatma is his plenary partial expansion, and all the pervading Brahman effulgence is the personal rays of his transcendental body. Therefore, Krishna is always one, and for him there is no differentiation. That is the difference between any ordinary living being and Krishna. For any ordinary living being, there are many distinctions. An ordinary living being is different from his body, and he is different from other species of living entities. A human being is different from other human beings and different from the animals. Even in his own body, there are different bodily limbs. We have our hands and legs, but our hands are different from our legs. The hand cannot act like the leg, nor can the leg act like the hand. The ears can hear, but the eyes cannot. And the eyes can see, but the ears cannot. All these differences are technically called Swajatiya Vijatiya.
The bodily limitations whereby one part of the body cannot act as another part is totally absent from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no difference between his body and himself. He is completely spiritual, and therefore there is no difference between his body and his soul. Similarly, he is not different from his millions of incarnations and plenary expansions. Baladev is the first expansion of Krishna, and from Baladev expand Sankarsana, Vasudev, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. From Sankarsana there is an expansion of Narayana, and from Narayana there is a second quadruple expansion of Sankarsana, Vasudev, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Similarly, there are innumerable other expansions of Krishna, but all of them are one. Krishna has many incarnations, such as Lord Nrsimha, Lord Boar, Lord Fish, and Lord Tortoise, but there is no difference between Krishna's original two-handed form, like that of a human being, and these incarnations of gigantic animal forms. Nor is there any difference between the action of one part of his body and that of another. His hands can act as his legs, his eyes can act as his ears, and his nose can act as another part of his body. Krishna's smiling and eating and hearing are all the same. We limited living entities have to use a particular part of the body for a particular purpose. But there is no such distinction for Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita it is said, Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti manti. Krishna can perform the activities of one limb with any other limb. So, by analytical study of Krishna and his person, it is concluded that he is the complete whole. When he meditates, therefore, he meditates on himself. Self meditation by ordinary men, designated in Sanskrit as so aham, is simply imitation. Krishna may meditate on himself because he is the complete whole, but we cannot imitate him and meditate on ourselves. Our body is a designation superimposed upon ourself, the soul. Krishna's body is not a designation. Krishna's body is also Krishna. There is no existence of anything foreign in Krishna. Whatever there is in Krishna is also Krishna. He is therefore the supreme, indestructible, complete existence or the supreme truth.
Krishna's existence is not relative existence. Everything else but Krishna is a relative truth, but Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Krishna does not depend on anything but himself for his existence. Our existence, however, is relative. For example, only when there is the light of the sun, the moon, or electricity are we able to see. Our seeing, therefore, is relative, and the light of the sun and moon and electricity is also relative. They are called illuminating only because we see them as such. But dependence and relativity do not exist in Krishna. His activities are not dependent on anyone else's appreciation, nor does he depend on anyone else's help. He is beyond the existence of limited time and space, and because he is transcendental to time and space, he cannot be covered by the illusion of Maya, whose activities are limited. In the Vedic literature, we find that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has multipotencies. Since all such potencies are emanations from him, there is no difference between him and his potencies. Certain philosophers say, however, that when Krishna comes, he accepts a material body. But even if it is accepted that when he comes to the material world, he accepts a material body, it should be concluded also that because the material energy is not different from him, this body does not act materially. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said, therefore, that he appears by his own internal potency, Atma Maya.
Krishna is called the Supreme Brahman because he is the cause of creation, the cause of maintenance, and the cause of dissolution. Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva are different expansions of these material qualities. All these material qualities can act upon the conditioned souls, but there is no such action and reaction upon Krishna, because these qualities are all simultaneously one with and different from him. Krishna himself is simply Saksidananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, and because of his inconceivable greatness, he is called the Supreme Brahman. His meditation on Brahman or Paramatma or Bhagavan is on himself only and not on anything else beyond himself. This meditation cannot be imitated by the ordinary living entity.
After his meditation, the Lord would regularly bathe early in the morning with clear, sanctified water. Then he would change into fresh clothing, cover himself with a wrapper, and engage in his daily religious functions. Out of his many religious duties, the first was to offer oblations into the sacrificial fire and silently chant the Gayatri mantra. Lord Krishna, as the ideal householder, executed all the religious functions of a householder without deviation. When the sunrise became visible, the Lord would offer specific prayers to the sun god. The sun god and other demigods mentioned in the Vedic scriptures are described as different limbs of the body of Lord Krishna, and it is the duty of the householder to offer respects to the demigods and great sages as well as the forefathers.
That's right. To give her?
As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has no specific duty to perform in this world, and yet he acts just like an ordinary man, living an ideal life within this material world. In accordance with Vedic ritualistic principles, the Lord would offer respects to the demigods. The regulative principles by which the demigods and the forefathers are worshipped is called Tarpana, which means pleasing. One's forefathers may have to take a body on another planet, but by the performance of this Tarpana system, they become very happy wherever they may be. It is the duty of the householder to make his family members happy, and by following this Tarpana system, he can make his forefathers happy also. As the perfect explanatory householder, Lord Sri Krishna followed this Tarpana system and offered respectful obeisances to the elderly superior members of his family.
His next duty was to give cows in charity to the Brahmanas. Every day, Lord Krishna used to give many groups of the 13,084 cows. Each of the cows was decorated with a silken cover and pearl necklace. Their horns were covered with gold plating, and their hooves were silver plated. All of them were full of milk due to having their firstborn cows with them. And they were very tame and peaceful. When the cows were given in charity to the Brahmanas also were given nice silken garments, and each was given a deerskin and sufficient quantity of sesame seeds. The Lord is generally known as the Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, which means that his first duty is to see to the welfare of the cows and the Brahmanas. Thus, he is to give cows in charity to the Brahmanas with opulent decoration and paraphernalia. Then, wishing for the welfare of all living entities, he would touch auspicious articles such as milk, honey, ghee, gold, jewels, and fire. Although the Lord is by nature very beautiful due to the perfect figure of his transcendental body, he would dress himself in yellow garments and put on his necklace of Kaustuba jewels. He would wear flower garlands, smear his body with the pulp of sandalwood, and decorate himself with similar cosmetics and ornaments. It is said that the ornaments themselves become beautiful upon being placed on the transcendental body of the Lord. After decorating himself in this way, the Lord would then look as marble statues of the cow and calf and visit temples of God or demigods like the Lord Shiva. There were many Brahmanas who would come daily to see Supreme Lord before taking their breakfast. They were anxious to see him, and he welcomed them.
His next duty was to please all kinds of men belonging to the different castes, both in the city and within the palace compound. He made them happy by fulfilling their different desires, and when the Lord saw them happy, he also became very much pleased. The flower garlands, betel nuts, sandalwood pulp, and other fragrant cosmetic articles offered to the Lord would be distributed by him, first to the Brahmanas and elderly members of the family, then to the queens, and then to the ministers, and if there were still some balance, he would engage it for his own personal use. By the time the Lord finished all these daily duties and activities, his charioteer Daruka would come with his wonderful chariot to stand before the Lord with folded hands, intimating that the chariot was ready, and the Lord would come out of the palace to travel. Then the Lord, accompanied by Uddhava and Satyaki, would ride on the chariot just as the sun god rides on his chariot in the morning, appearing with a blazing rays on the surface of the world. When the Lord was about to leave his palaces, all the queens would look at him with feminine gestures. The Lord would respond to their greetings with smiles, attracting their hearts so much that they would feel intense separation from him.
Then the Lord would go to the assembly known as Sudharma. It may be remembered that the Sudharma assembly house was taken away from the heavenly planets and established in the city of Dwaraka. The specific significance of the assembly house was that anyone who entered it would be freed from the six kinds of material pangs, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. These are the whips of material existence, and as long as one remained in that Sudharma assembly house, he would not be affected by these six material whips. The Lord would say goodbye in all the 16,000 palaces, and again he would become one and enter the Sudharma assembly house in procession with other members of the Yadu dynasty. After entering the assembly house, he used to sit in the exalted royal throne, and he would be seen to emanate glaring rays of transcendental effulgence. In the midst of all the great heroes of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna resembled the full moon in the sky, surrounded by multi-luminaries. In the assembly house were professional jokers, dancers, musicians, and ballet girls. And as soon as the Lord sat on his throne, they would begin their respective functions to please the Lord and put him in a happy mood. First of all, the jokers would talk in such a way that the Lord and the associates would enjoy their humor, which would refresh the morning mood. The dramatic actors would then play their parts, and the dancing ballet girls would separately display their artistic movements. All these functions would be accompanied by the beating of the mridanga drums and the sounds of the veena, flutes, and bells, followed by the sound of muraja, another type of drum. To these musical vibrations, the auspicious sound of conch shell would be added. The professional singers called sutas and magadas would sing, and others would perform their dancing art. In this way, as devotees would offer respectful prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the learned brahmanas present in the assembly would chant Vedic hymns and explain them to the audience to the best of their knowledge, and sometimes some of them would recite old historical accounts of the activities of the prominent kings. The Lord, accompanied by his associates, would be very much pleased to hear them.
Once upon a time, a person arrived at the gateway of the assembly house who was unknown to all the members of the assembly, and with the permission of Lord Krishna, he was admitted into the assembly by the doorkeeper. The doorkeeper was ordered to present him before the Lord, and the man appeared and offered his respectful obeisances unto the Lord with folded hands. It had happened that when King Jarasandha conquered all other kingdoms, many kings did not bow their heads before Jarasandha, and consequently all of them, numbering 20,000, were arrested and made his prisoners. The man brought before Lord Krishna by the doorkeeper was a messenger from all these imprisoned kings. Being duly presented before the Lord, the man began to relay a message from the kings as follows.
Dear Lord, you are the eternal form of transcendental bliss and knowledge. As such, you are beyond the reach of the mental speculation or vocal description of any materialistic man within this world. A slight portion of your glories can be known by persons fully surrendered onto your lotus feet, and by your grace only. Such persons become freed from all material anxieties. Dear Lord, we are not among these surrendered souls. We are still within the duality and illusion of this material existence. We therefore take shelter of your lotus feet, for we are afraid of the cycle of birth and death. Dear Lord, we think that there are many living entities like us who are eternally entangled in fruitive activities and their reactions. They are never inclined to follow your instructions by performing devotional service, although it is pleasing to the heart and most auspicious for one's existence. On the contrary, they are against the path of Krishna conscious life, and they are wandering within the three worlds, impelled by the illusory energy of material existence.
Dear Lord, who can estimate your mercy and your powerful activities? You are present always as the insurmountable force of eternal time, baffling in the indefatigable desires of the materialistics, who are thus repeatedly confused and frustrated. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto you in your form of eternal time. Dear Lord, you are the proprietor of all the worlds, and you have incarnated yourself with your plenary expansion, Lord Balaram. It is said that your appearance in this incarnation is for the purpose of protecting the faithful and destroying the miscreants. Under the circumstances, how is it possible that miscreants like Jarasan can put us into such deplorable conditions of life against your authority? We are puzzled at the situation and cannot understand how it is possible. It may be that Jarasan has been deputed to give us such trouble because of our past misdeeds. But we have heard from revealed scriptures that anyone who surrenders onto your lotus feet is immediately immune to the reactions of sinful life. We therefore offer ourselves wholeheartedly onto your shelter, and we hope that your Lordship will now give us full protection. We have now come to the real conclusion of our lives. Our kingly positions were nothing but the reward of our past pious activities, just as our suffering imprisonment by Jarasandh is the result of our past impious activities. We realize now that the reactions of both pious and impious activities are temporary and that we can never be happy in this conditioned life. The material body is awarded to us by the modes of material nature, and on account of this, we are full of anxieties. The material condition of life simply involves bearing the burden of this dead body. As a result of fruitive activities, we have thus been subjected to being beasts of burden for these bodies and being forced by conditioned life. We have given up the pleasing life of Krishna consciousness. Now we realize that we are the most foolish persons. We have been entangled in the network of material reactions due to our ignorance. We have therefore come to the shelter of your lotus feet, which can immediately eradicate all the results of fruitive action and thus free us from the contamination of material pains and pleasures.
Dear Lord, because we are now surrendered souls at your lotus feet, you can give us relief from the entrapment of fruitive action made possible by Jarasanga. Dear Lord, it is known to you that Jarasanga possesses the power of 10,000 elephants, and with this power he has imprisoned us, just as a lion hypnotizes a flock of sheep. Dear Lord, you have already fought with Jarasanga 18 times consecutively. out of which you have defeated him 17 times by surpassing his extraordinary powerful position. But in your 18th fight, you exhibited your human behavior, and thus it appeared that you were defeated. Dear Lord, we know very well that Jarasandha cannot defeat you at any time. You, for your power, strength, resources, and authority, all unlimited. No one can equal you or surpass you. Your apparent defeat by Jarasandha in the 18th engagement was nothing but an exhibition of human behavior. Unfortunately, foolish Jarasandha could not understand your tricks, and he has since then become puffed up over his material power and prestige. Especially, he has arrested and imprisoned us, knowing fully that as your devotee, we are subordinate to your sovereignty.
The messenger concluded, "Now I have explained the awful position of the kings, and your lordship can consider and do whatever you like. As the messenger and representative of all those imprisoned kings, I have submitted my words before your lordship and presented their prayers to you. All the kings are very anxious to see you, so that they can all personally surrender at your lotus feet. My dear Lord, be merciful upon them and act for their good fortune."
At the very moment, the messenger of the imprisoned kings was presenting their appeal before the Lord, the great sage Narada arrived. Because he was a great saint, his hair was dazzling like gold. And when he entered the assembly house, it appeared that the sun god was personally present in the midst of the assembly. Lord Krishna is the worshipable master of even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, yet, as soon as he saw that the sage Narada had arrived, he immediately stood up with his ministers and secretaries to receive the great sage and offer his respectful obeisances by bowing his head. The great sage Narada took a comfortable seat, and Lord Krishna worshipped him with all paraphernalia as required for the regular reception of a saintly person. While trying to satisfy Naradaji, Lord Krishna spoke the following words in his sweet and natural voice.
My dear great sage, among the demigods, I think that now everything is well within the three worlds. You are perfectly eligible to travel everywhere in space, in the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems of this universe. Fortunately, when we meet you, we can very easily take information from your holiness of all the news of the three worlds. For within this cosmic manifestation of the Supreme Lord, there is nothing concealed from your knowledge. You know everything, and so I wish to question you. Are the Pandavas doing well? And what is the present plan of King Yudhisthira? Will you kindly let me know what they want to do at present?
The great sage Narada spoke as follows. My dear Lord, you have spoken about the cosmic manifestation created by the Supreme Lord, but I know that you are the all-preventing creator. Your energies are so extensive and inconceivable that even powerful personalities like Brahma, the Lord of this particular universe, cannot measure your inconceivable power. My dear Lord, you are present as the Supreme Soul, in super soul in everyone's heart by your inconceivable potency, exactly like the fire which is present in everyone but which no one can see directly. In conditioned life, all living entities are within the jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature. As such, they are unable to see your presence everywhere. With their material eyes. By your grace, however, I have seen many times the action of your inconceivable potency, and therefore, when you ask me for the news of the Pandavas, which is not at all unknown to you, I am not surprised at your inquiry.
My dear Lord, by your inconceivable potencies, you create this cosmic manifestation, maintain it, and again dissolve it. Only by dint of your inconceivable potency does this material world, although a shadow representation of the spiritual world, appear to be factual. No one can understand what you plan to do in the future. Your transcendental position is always inconceivable to everyone. As far as I am concerned, I can simply offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. In the bodily concept of existence, everyone is driven by material desires, and thus everyone develops new material bodies one after another in the cycle of birth and death. Being absorbed in such a concept of existence, one doesn't know how to get out of this engagement of the material body. By your causeless mercy, my Lord, you descend to exhibit your various transcendental pastimes, which are illuminating and full of glory. Therefore, I have no alternative but to offer my respectable obeisances unto you.
My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Parabrahman, and your pastimes as an ordinary human being or another tactical resource, exactly like a play on the stage in which the actor plays parts different from his own identity. Because the Pandavas are your cousins, you have inquired about them in the role of their well-wisher, and therefore therefore I shall let you know about their intentions. Now please hear me.
First I may inform you that King Yudhishthira has all material opulences which are possible to achieve in the highest planetary system Brahmaloka. He has no material opulence for which to aspire, and yet he wants to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice only to get your association and please you. King Yudhishthira is so opulent that he has attained all the opulences of Brahmalok even on this earthly planet. He is fully satisfied and he does not need anything more. He is full in everything, but now he wants to worship you to achieve your causeless mercy, and I beg to request you to fulfill his desires. My dear Lord, in this great sacrificial performance by King Yudhishthira, there will be an assembly of all the demigods and all the famous kings of the world.
Hare Krishna. My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, one who engages himself in your devotional service by the prescribed method of hearing, chanting, and remembering, certainly becomes purified from the contamination of the modes of material nature. And what to speak of those of who have opportunity to see you and touch you directly. My dear Lord, you are the symbol of everything auspicious. My dear Lord, you are the symbol of everything auspicious. Your transcendental name and fame has spread all over the universe, including the higher, middle, and lower planetary systems. The transcendental water, which washes your lotus feet, is known in the higher planetary systems as Mandakini, in the lower planetary systems as Bhogavati, and in this earthly planetary system as the Ganges. This sacred transcendental water flows throughout the entire universe, purifying wherever it flows.
Just before the great sage Narada arrived in the Sudharma assembly, house of Dwarka, Lord Krishna and his ministers and secretaries had been considering how to attack the kingdom of Jarasandha, because they were seriously considering this subject. Narada's proposal that Lord Krishna go to Hastinapur for Maharaj Yudhishthira's great Rajasuya sacrifice did not much appeal to them. Lord Krishna could understand the intentions of his associates because he is the ruler of even Lord Brahma. Therefore, in order to pacify them, he smilingly said to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, you are always my well-wishing confidential friend. I therefore wish to see everything through you because I believe that your counsel is always right. I believe that you understand the whole situation perfectly. Therefore, I am asking your opinion. What should I do? I have faith in you, and therefore I shall do whatever you advise." It was known to Uddhava that although Lord Krishna was acting like an ordinary man, he knew everything, past, present, and future. However, because the Lord wanted to consult with him, Uddhava, in order to render service to the Lord, began to speak. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of 17th chapter of Krishna, Lord Krishna's daily activities.
So, my dear devotees, that concludes our 1 hour of reading of Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. And for all of our online readers, we hope that the subtitles enhances your understanding of the English Krishna book. And as always, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnuvedaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. And to each other, Vancha Kalpa Durubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for allowing us to come and read Krishna book to you.